Hello, everybody. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday weekend. Welcome to the Tracy Sandler Show. It was quite an exciting NFL weekend, starting with Thursday Night Football, which probably didn't need to be as exciting as it was, and moving right on into the weekend. We are recording this on Monday, so there's still a big game tonight between the Dolphins and the Saints, but I'm so excited to be joined by NFL Media's Jim Trotter to talk what is really one of the crazier NFL seasons we've seen in a while in terms of the playoff picture before us 2 weeks to go. So many things being juggled. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my fake juggling that I'm doing with my hands. So much to discuss. Jim, welcome very much. Welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate it, but I'm not so sure your guests are going to enjoy it because I know nothing right now. It is.
Well, I don't think any of us know anything.
I know. It's just crazy. We make the NFL, and I get it, because there are only 17 games, every week is huge in and of itself. It's not like basketball or baseball where you got 162 games. And so it seems that we live and die with the results of every week, and I had to write about this week and talk about how, let's be honest. If we are truly being candid with the public, the reality is if there is one truism with this season, it's that the more we know, the less we know.
True.
And so I asked this question, for instance, and again, if we're being honest, when the Colts started 1-4, how many of us wrote them off?
I 100% wrote them off.
When the Dolphins started 1-7, how many of us wrote them off?
Oh, well, in fairness to that, though, it did feel that they were going full Dolphin. It was like, I think with the Colts, we may have been a little unfair. With the Dolphins, full Dolphin. But I think, the same could be said about the Chiefs. I tweeted yesterday, remember when we wondered what happened to the Chiefs? That was funny.
Right. But wait, how about the Titans? When they lost Derrick Henry and later 3 or 4, people were writing them off. What about and again, the Chiefs, you have the Chiefs. There are just so many of these storylines. And then on the flip side, let's look at the last few weeks. How many of us said, well, now the Chiefs, or I'm sorry, not the Chiefs, but the Patriots are now a lock to reach the Super Bowl after they had won 7 in a row and whatnot. How many of us said that when the 49ers got on that roll, that this is the team nobody wanted to play, and then they go out and they lose down at Tennessee? All these sorts of things that we did, or how many is like me, being a guy who lives in San Diego, covered the Chargers for 8 years. When they were able to hang on and beat Pittsburgh in that primetime game, how many of us said, oh, the Chargers are no longer going to Charger? And then they turn around and what do they do yesterday? They lose to Houston. So I say that to say, Tracy, to be completely honest and transparent with your audience, I don't know anything. So why you're having me on this show, I have no idea why you would put your credibility on the line and have me on. But it's just a crazy year where I feel like I just can't get a grasp on anything that's going on.
See, I would make the argument that it makes me even more credible to bring someone on that knows nothing because none of us know anything. So right now the audience is either like, well, I'm turning this off, or the audience is like, well, if Jim Trotter doesn't know anything, now I feel better. Let's see what they have to say. I hope it's the latter, but if not, we get you, and have a great day, everybody.
Wow.
Thanks for tuning in.
Nobody's going to turn Tracy off.
Well, I hope not. That's nice. That's a kind thing to say. I don't know that that's true, but that's a very kind thing. I'll make sure to get that Venmo over to you later when we're done recording for that one. I really do.
That I do know. No one's going to turn Tracy off.
Well, thank you. That just made my whole day. We could just cut it now and wish everybody the best of luck. But you do bring up this season to me, and maybe we say this every year. I should go back and listen to podcasts. Not that this one existed a year ago, but podcasts from years past and feel if every year do I say, this year seems crazy. We don't know what's going on. But this year really kind of does. There seems to be as much parity in the league as we've seen in a very long time. We are seeing a lot of streaks going on, though I think the cream of the crop is rising. But let's take the Packers-Browns game the other day. This is a game, obviously, the Packers won. To me, right now, I could be wrong and feel differently about this next week. But to me right now, the Packers are a little bit the scariest NFC team in the league. They do seem to find a way to keep winning. They're probably going to get that number one seed in home field advantage. They're going to have a bye, and then everybody has to go to Green Bay. And I don't want to be a spoiler for anybody who doesn't know this. Green Bay, not warm in January, and really very snowy. I mean, that's a home field advantage where the elements, really do come into play. Also not the easiest place to get to. There's a lot of things that go in there. So, but they barely beat a Browns team whose quarterback got, threw 4 interceptions. That last one, I think, was a holding call, and I think that was unfair. But nonetheless, the end of the day on the stat line, he threw 4 interceptions. And I just think it shows that on any given Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, as the case has been, anybody can win and nobody is a lock to go anywhere.
No, I think you're right. We always have this saying that styles make fights. And so particularly when we get to the postseason, I think that's going to be true. I'll say this to you about Green Bay. I have said for some time, the reason I have Green Bay number 1 on my list, if we're talking about power rankings, is because to me, they have been the most consistent team throughout the year. If you throw away week 1, where they got routed by the Saints, and that was coming off an offseason with so much drama with Aaron Rodgers not being around and the question of whether or not he was going to return. No team has played as consistently and at such a consistent high level as the Packers. And that's why I know they have 2 games left against Minnesota and Detroit. I know that Minnesota beat them recently. I know that Minnesota is 1-1-1 in its last 3 games at Lambeau Field. So there is the possibility that the Packers could lose. I just don't see it. I know Detroit plays competitively against everyone. I know Detroit will be there in terms of the effort in that final game. But Detroit doesn't have the talent, I feel, to close out against a team like Green Bay. So for me, I agree with you 1,000%. I think that the Packers, in my mind, are the class of the NFC. But the reason I cannot say that I believe they're definitely going to the Super Bowl is because we just saw them lose at home last year in the playoffs.
Yes.
So they can be beaten in Green Bay. I was actually there the one year when Favre was there, and they lost to the Giants in the NFC Championship game at Lambeau Field in one of the coldest games I've ever been to, where it actually hurt my lungs to breathe in that air. So I don't, as much as I say I think that they are the number 1 team, they will get the number 1 seed. I'm not at a point where I can concede that they're going to go to the Super Bowl simply because of the fact, as I said earlier, styles make fights, and it just depends on who they get matched up with.
I really like styles make fights. First of all, I'm going to start using it. I've never heard that before. So I hope everyone like me has learned something today, but I really like that. I also want to give the audience an apology. I am not in my normal place, and there are going to be ambient noises that you may hear. I'm in my parents' place in Palm Desert. So if you hear a phone ring or a noise, just keep it moving, everybody. I apologize. But I like styles make fights, and I think you're right. And the thing is, it's a little bit like the NCAA tournament. Once you're in, everything changes. You just want to get in. And that, I think, is a big thing for a lot of these teams that can change everything. Didn't we see a team, and I probably should have looked up exactly who it was, but years ago get to the Super Bowl with a 9-7 record and win it? Back before, when we only had 16 games. I mean, it's been some time, and might have been the Saints. It might have actually been the Packers. I may be making this up entirely. But the point, the idea being that once you're in, everything changes. And you make a really good point. And we did see that last year with the Packers. And sometimes, decision-making gets in the way, and somebody running a route wrong gets in the way, or a offsides call on 3rd and 12 gets in the way, and you just never know. And that's, of course, the beauty and the frustration of football. So if the playoffs started today, they don't. But if the playoffs started today, it would be as follows, and I'm going to read this because I don't have it memorized. In the AFC, the Chiefs would have a bye, which, again, we talked about the Chiefs, and, of course, what a difference a couple months makes. But they do look about as good as anybody right now. The Chiefs would have a bye. The Ravens would be at the Titans, Patriots at the Bengals, Colts at the Bills. So let's start there in the AFC. If that sounds That sounds about right. The Colts, you brought up the Colts earlier, and I just wanted to say, the 49ers lost that Sunday night game against the Colts. And I remember asking someone, like, is this a team in crisis? They just lost to the Colts. And look at the Colts today. I think they would lose to the Colts again, and I'm not sure it would even be a close game. So, it's funny how just circling back to writing people off in the beginning. But let's start with that kind of AFC look. The Ravens, to me, look like a team in crisis today. I mean, they can't seem to win a game. I mean, talk about grabbing defeat from the jaws of victory. That seems to be how they go. Not this week's game, which was, a blowout. But they've had a very tough few weeks. I don't think they're going to go far. I think the Titans, we saw them Thursday night, a very depleted Titans team go ahead and beat San Francisco in a game that was always going to be tough for the 49ers, but the 49ers really also grabbed defeat from the jaws of victory there. The Titans, who potentially could have Derrick Henry back for the playoffs, I think they're going to be a tough team to beat.
Oh, there's no
They're
question.
going to be a very tough team to get to beat.
No, the Titans are a tough team, period. And part of the reason for that, I believe, is that number one, they have a style that usually carries into the postseason. If you're able to play defense, if you're able to run the ball, traditionally you have success in the postseason. If they get Derrick Henry back, obviously that's going to make them that much more formidable. The thing I love about the Titans, too, is that they take on the personality of their coach. They're smart, they're physical, and they only know one way to play. And I love that about them. So I agree that that's a team that you can't write off. The Colts are fascinating to me. I mean, to start 1-4 and then to come back and beat the teams that they've beaten of late really speaks to what Frank Reich has created there in terms of the culture and the expectation. And it also shows the character of that team and those players. So, but I will say this to you. I think more than in the NFC, I think the AFC, I really do believe that Kansas City is a cut above everyone from this standpoint. Everybody wants to talk about their offense. Okay, Mahomes is right now. He's not turning the ball over the way he was. They're starting to put up points again. I tend to look at the other side of the ball. When you have that quarterback and that offense combined with a defense that during this, 8-game win streak has given up more than 17 points only once, that says to me they are going to be a really, really tough out, particularly if they have home field advantage, where we know Arrowhead is one of the toughest places to play. So I think the AFC, I don't see it being as competitive as the NFC. I think the NFC, for the most part, is wide open. But the AFC, I don't see that. Baltimore has just sustained too many injuries. And, with Lamar being out the last 2 weeks, and this started from preseason with them. They lose their top 3 running backs. They've lost a couple of offensive.
Corner.
Marcus Peters, their offensive tackle, Ronnie Staley. You just go down the line with them, and how they're even in the mix now is a credit to John Harbaugh and that staff and those players, because they shouldn't be. But again, I think Kansas City is a cut above everyone else in the AFC right now. And if they were to lose, I would be more surprised by that than I would anything in the NFC.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Kansas City defense, too, because the defense is an area where the last few years has been considered a weakness. And I put that in quotes because for a team with a defense that's apparently a weakness, they sure go very far and do very well. And so for them to perform at this level over these last 8 weeks is pretty incredible. And no one can point to that anymore. They are now complete, on both sides. And I think that's a really big thing. And I think if you have that old adage of defense wins championships and you add in Patrick Mahomes and that offense, I think they're going to be tough to beat the way around.
I'll say this to you. No matter what they say publicly, there was concern in that organization back when they were 3-4. And I was at the game in Tennessee where they trailed 27-0, I believe it was. And that just did not look like a good team at that point. And they didn't turn it around overnight. It was sort of incremental in terms they just found ways to win early on. Didn't put up a lot of points, but defensively held some teams down. And I think now what's happened is they have built off that. They have stopped turning the ball over. They're creating takeaways. And you get this sense of confidence and energy from them that is so different. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
credit to Andy Reid, his staff, and those players. But I just think they're going to be a heck of a tough out going forward.
I have a question about that, actually. And I think it is a credit to Andy Reid. But you have a team that was 3-4. If there was concern, you have a quarterback who was all of a sudden, turning the ball over. You had a lot of things going on there. There was a perfect storm for drama, concern, all of the things. Is it coaching that can turn a team like that around? Because obviously there is talent, but that could combust. Is it coaching that really can turn that around?
Well, it's a factor. I think ultimately everything comes down to the players in the locker room. I think you win
Mm-hmm.
with what's the saying? All pros and not Joes,
Right.
unless it's Joe Montana, right?
Right.
But no,
But
I
everything's
think
different.
ultimately, I think coaching is a part of that because coaching helps create the culture and the level
Mm-hmm.
of expectation within a locker room and within an organization. And these players believe in Andy Reid and that staff because of the track record. So
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that coaches play a role, but ultimately I also think it comes down to players win games. They have to go out and
Mm-hmm.
execute. And I believe they have the right players. So and it starts with Patrick Mahomes, obviously. And then defensively, I think when you have a guy like Tyrann Mathieu who
Mm-hmm.
holds not only his teammates but himself accountable, that's something that permeates the locker room. So I don't think it's one or the other. I think sometimes we try and delineate these things, and I think it's both.
And I'm glad you also said that about players win games because, as you know, I cover the 49ers and it's been a very up and down season, as you may have heard. In 49ers Twitter, sometimes I'm actually concerned that it's just going to like blow up and that my phone is just going to blow up in my face. And there's, a lot of, a lot of against Kyle and of course against Jimmy. And there's so many things. But I think at the end of the day, players, as you said, do win games. And I want to talk a little bit about the 49ers because I know a lot of the people listening to this podcast at this point are like, can we talk a little bit about the 49ers? But I think, this is a team that on any given week, I consider them maybe on the high end of the mediocre teams. But on some weeks, they look great. On some weeks, they look awful. I think there are a variety of reasons for that. I think you have a roster that has Pro Bowlers, and then everyone else is okay. And maybe that's part of the problem. There's probably a lot of deep dive we can go into this, but they've been somewhat of an interesting team because you did have a team who kind of eked out those first two wins. Next thing you know, they're 3-5. Then they go on a streak, can't beat Seattle to save their lives. But then they're back in business. Then they lose that Thursday night game. And now, of course, the whole world is coming to an end and the sky is falling. And this is a team that could win their final two games, end up 10-7, and still not go to the playoffs. What do you think from your perspective? Because I'm like in it every day. From your perspective, what is going on in Santa Clara?
Oh, look, we knew this was going to be a drama-filled season the minute they made the
Mm-hmm.
trade to get Trey Lance. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that was always going to be the backdrop of this season. Um, should the young kid play? Should Jimmy play? Um, do you keep Jimmy? Do you get rid of
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy? All those sorts of things. And look, as I wrote this morning, they knew the minute they made that trade what this season was going to be like in terms of outside expectation and those sorts of things. But they made the trade because they believed that number one, Jimmy couldn't stay healthy. They couldn't count on him to stay healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
they just weren't sure that he was a guy who could lead them to a championship. Okay. You don't make that trade
Mm-hmm.
if you believe you have a guy who can lead you to a championship.
Absolutely.
But what we've also learned is that they feel Trey isn't ready. Otherwise, they would
Mm-hmm.
be playing him, and they believe that
Absolutely.
Jimmy gives him the best chance to win. Um, I think there are also subtle things that people kind of overlook a little bit. Whenever you make changes on your staff, it takes time to adjust. And defensively, I have seen them get better, but I've also seen
Mm-hmm.
them give up crucial plays at crucial times. Now,
Mm-hmm.
is that on the coordinator and the coaches? is that on the players, I know they've had a lot of people in and out of the lineup. I think that some players haven't played up to their past. So it's multi-layered, and that's why it's always fascinating to me when people like point the finger at one thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
this. It's not always first of all, it's not always the same thing every week.
Especially with that team.
Exactly. And then and secondly, that's just lazy and easy. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a number of factors
That's
involved.
Twitter.
Oh, I know. But there are a number of factors involved. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Jimmy isn't a big issue here. He is. I mean, they should have won that game down in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to the Super Bowl as well, where he missed Emmanuel Sanders. They win that
Mm-hmm.
game if he makes that throw. That's just the
Mm-hmm.
reality. So
Mm-hmm.
the 49ers, in my opinion, and how's this for great analysis, are only going to go as far as Jimmy takes them. And if he plays
Which,
well,
yeah.
they got a shot. If he doesn't play well, they're not going to go anywhere. It's just that simple.
And it's the players have said that, and they've said it. It's interesting because they've said it in defense of Jimmy a lot in the last several weeks. We've heard a number of them say it. But to me, listening to them say it, it is in defense of Jimmy, but it's also just reality. And it's also saying we will go as far as he takes us. And that is what it is. And, I'm a Jimmy fan. I think there are those that might even call me a Jimmy apologist. And I would say the other night was on Jimmy. They lost that game because of Jimmy. And that is the problem with him at quarterback. He's not consistent. And he's never going to be Aaron Rodgers. He's never going to be Tom Brady. He's always going to be an average quarterback who can play really well. And if he doesn't play really well, they lose. And as you said, that is a lot of why they lost the Super Bowl, probably entirely why they lost the Super Bowl. And that's why they lost the other night. And that just is. And I think what's concerning is these interceptions they're so bad. Like you can see them coming from a mile away. And this doesn't have to be like a whole Jimmy thing, but you can see them from a mile away. And I think that's the reality of what it is. Trey's not ready. He wasn't going to be ready this year, most likely. And this is what it is. And so he's going to be the guy, and they'll go as far as he takes them. But you brought up defensively, and I can see you might want to say something else about Jimmy, so I'll let you do that too. But I think one thing I'll say about D'Amico Ryans, which has been good for all the injuries and the guys in and out of the lineup, I think it's amazing that they've done as well as they have. But you're right. There are guys who in the past have been all pros who are not making plays. It's not just on the guys. It's not on the rookie corner who's starting before he really should start. There are other guys on that team.
Yeah, I think everything you said is accurate. Look, the 49ers are better than what they've shown, or their talent level is better than what they've shown,
Mm-hmm.
put it that way. And that's why they're
Mm-hmm.
a team that I still don't rule out in the postseason if they get hot.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that Kyle's offense is predicated on is a strong running game. And that has not been a consistent factor for them this year, which puts more pressure on Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
But look, the 49ers are not a team that you can sort of dismiss out of hand because they do have talent and they can get hot. Will they get hot? I have no idea. I mean, that's what these players, again,
Nobody knows.
yeah, as I said to you, styles make fights. And if they get in the right
Mm-hmm.
matchups, they can win it. They can also lose it. So that's what's going to make the playoffs fun. The late Pete Rozelle is probably smiling from up above because the one thing he wanted was parity in the NFL. He felt parity was what would make the league even more successful. And what we have now, for the most part, with the exception of maybe 2-3 teams, is we have parity. And that's why in the AFC, we only have one team that has clinched a playoff berth with 2 weeks to play. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting.
It is going to be fun. So I want to talk about an NFC team that looked really hot last night. Granted, they were playing a team that looked really not hot. But I do want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys because a little bit, and 49ers fans are going to get so upset with me about this, but whatever. I love Dak Prescott, and I like to see him successful. And I think the Cowboys are kind of fun. and I'd like to see them go far. I'm sure there are a lot of people who not only just turned this off, but also just like unfollowed me on Twitter.
Yeah, I think you may have hurt your audience.
I think when you said people wouldn't turn me off, I think they just did.
Yeah.
I will say that if they play the 49ers, I obviously don't want to see them go far. But I think they are a fun football team. Are they legit, though? That's what I can't decide.
We talked earlier about what travels in the playoffs, and they have an incredible defense right now. Dan Quinn has done an amazing job with that unit, and it is for that reason that I think you cannot dismiss the Cowboys. Offensively, they've been inconsistent of late. Great, they got healthy against a bad Washington defense at this point. But yeah, they have the talent to make a run. Absolutely, they do. But for me, it all starts with that defense for them. And how many times have we said that about Dallas in recent years? We haven't.
Many.
So, excuse me, I give Dan Quinn a tremendous amount of credit. And when I look at what Micah Parsons is doing, it's just phenomenal for a rookie who has played so many different positions. Not only played so many positions, this is the key, but has been impactful at every position that he's played. And that's the difference there. And now they're getting healthy. They're getting people back from COVID, from injury, that sort of thing. I think Dallas is going to be a tough out.
Well, COVID may end up being the biggest part of all of it.
Oh, without question.
I mean, that is really, as we've seen in the last few weeks, and now we're coming off the holidays and cold weather and travel, and there's going to be a surge. And I'm not a scientist or a doctor and all of those things, but I think COVID could have the biggest impact on the playoffs as anything, as much as any defense or quarterback.
Oh, there's no question about that. Look, I, like you, I'm not a doctor, but COVID now seems to have become the common cold, where even for vaccinated people, we know that the numbers, the data shows that if you are vaccinated and you test positive for COVID, the likelihood of you suffering serious symptoms or being hospitalized are very small. And so how many players have we heard of late who have tested positive and say, I don't feel anything. I feel fine. Or I have a runny nose, but that, no big deal, that sort of thing. And so I do think if everyone in this country were to be tested, I think we'd be shocked by how many people who are asymptomatic actually test positive for COVID. So I
bet you are.
Yeah, I think we're going to see, it is going to be a factor in the postseason. And we're going to see more players who test positive and who are asymptomatic. So it was interesting that the league and the union changed the protocols for how quickly you could get back on the field. And I'm not one of these who subscribe to the theory that it was done because of some new data or research or whatever. I think it's so they can get the games in.
It's 100% why it was done.
Exactly. So,
100%.
I'm not supposed to say those sorts of things, I'm sure, because of where I work, but the real is the real,
It's true, and it is what it is. I don't think it's shocking. I think.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for getting me fired.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, you know what? You're welcome to come back here anytime. This could become the Tracy Sandler and Jim Trotter show.
I will be there. I will hold you to that. Do not edit this part out.
I will not. No, I'm really not a big editor.
Okay.
Really, unless I say something really dumb. No, just kidding. But I don't edit much out of the podcast unless it really needs to be edited out of the podcast. So this is staying in there, and I will be held to that.
All right.
I think we'd have a lot of fun.
I'm considering this legally binding.
That's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sitting in my dad's office and he's a lawyer. So I think by the transitive property, we've basically signed a contract.
Okay. All right. You're on.
Great. So excited. We record Mondays and Thursdays.
Okay.
It's gonna be awesome. All right, I'm gonna give you the NFC since I did it for the AFC. The NFC, if the playoffs started today, Packers have their bye, Eagles at the Cowboys, Okay, unless things go terribly wrong, I'm pretty sure the Cowboys win that game. But as we've said, you never know. 49ers at the Rams, which would actually be kind of interesting because they will have played them in week 18. So we'll see what happens there. And then the Cardinals at the Bucks. And I'd like to talk about those two teams actually, because Cardinals obviously started out on quite the hot streak, and then they've kind of fully cardinaled. I like that chargering has now, we can use it, or maybe it's just me, for
As a
any
verb.
team. Yeah, did they dolphin? Are they cardinaling? Did they charger? So now they've somewhat cardinaled, as we saw them do last year. And then we have the Bucks, of course, led by the great Tom Brady. But I don't know that this is the same Bucks team that is going to be able to pull it out this year. But then again, I do live by an adage, which is you never count out Tom Brady. So one never knows. But I just would like to talk a little bit about those two teams and get your thoughts kind of on where they are right now and how you see it going in these next few weeks for them.
You're right. The Bucks are not the Bucks of last season. They won that Super
Mm-hmm.
Bowl last year and made that playoff run on the backs of the defense. And
Mm-hmm.
that defense is not the same this year because of
No.
attrition. They've lost so many players that from early in the season, they've struggled to respond to that. Offensively, look, that's a team with a lot of weapons. And I know they've had some injuries and COVID and this and the other of late. But man, think about it. You lose Mike Evans to injury. You lose Chris Godwin to injury. And then all of a sudden, Antonio Brown comes back from a 3-game suspension and looks like he's never been gone. It's just ridiculous
Mm-hmm.
the amount of talent they have offensively. But again, I don't think they're going to hold up defensively once we get to the postseason. I'm trying to remember the games you said. I do think Dallas would beat Philly, probably because Nick Sirianni would forget to run the football. And then the
Like,
other,
oh, I forgot to do something.
yeah,
Oh, I
oh,
knew it.
and as for the Cardinals, I think you're right. It when I talked to people there before yesterday's game, or no, not yes, was it yesterday? They all run together now. But before,
They
no,
played
Christmas,
on Saturday.
Christmas,
They
yeah,
played Saturday on Christmas Day.
before the Christmas Day game, and they had lost 2 in a row, including to Detroit. And I asked,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what's going on? And what I got was that there was not a sense of panic, but there was a sense of concern in that they had not come out ready to play in the previous 2 games against the Rams and the Lions. So I was curious as to how they were going to perform Christmas, knowing now that that sense of urgency was there and whatnot. And then they run into an Indianapolis team that's one of the hottest teams in football in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
efficiency level with which it's playing. But I'm concerned about them from this standpoint. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is not going to be back until the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Kyler Murray's play has slipped of late. He does not seem to be seeing the field as well as he should, or he did earlier. Another thing that I'm curious about is that here we are late in the year, and he and AJ Green do not seem to be on the same page. There have
Mm-hmm.
been a couple of times in recent games, even going back to the loss to Green Bay, where
Mm-hmm.
they were not on the same page. But even more than that, defensively, what I'm concerned about is all of a sudden they're giving up big plays at crucial times, which is something they did not do early in the year. And so when you put
Mm-hmm.
all that together, that gives me real pause about the Cardinals at this point. Um, and you have a head coach there who is acknowledging publicly feeling the pressure of how outsiders view him as this college coach who got fired and hasn't gotten it done with the Cardinals. Look, the reality is a lot of people were surprised that he wasn't fired at the end of last year. And in fact,
Mm-hmm.
the owner, Michael Bidwill, actually had him defend himself in their postseason meeting and say, why should I bring you back? So he knows that he's on a very short leash. And in fact, I go back to their first game against the Rams in LA where they bullied the Rams. I think it was week 4.
Mm-hmm.
And they bullied the Rams and won big. And I remember I had talked to Michael Bidwill after, and I said, hey, this game kind of felt personal, knowing that the Cardinals had lost 8 in a row to the Rams and whatnot. And he said to me, I don't know that it was personal, but it was damn important. And so when I passed that message along to Cliff and said, yeah, just talk to your owner, he said, yeah, no, it was personal, but it was damn important. The look on Cliff's face And then his response told me everything. He said, yeah, that was communicated during the week, which tells
Oof.
me that he is feeling heat from his owner.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is going to be a huge stretch run for the Cardinals. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs are going to determine whether or not there will be substantive changes or not in Arizona.
I think it's really tough when the head coach is publicly acknowledging that there's pressure,
Absolutely.
and I think, especially at this point, and I think it's going to be a rough go, and they're going to run into some teams that are playing very well, and I don't know if the Cardinals were to play the Bucks weekend one, I don't, even with all the things we just talked about with the Bucks, I think they beat the Cardinals, but
I'm not going
who
to
knows?
I'm not going to disagree with you.
You
Trust me.
can.
No, no. If I felt strongly, I would, but I don't know that you're wrong. But again, I'm probably the worst prognosticator among the NFL media. So take that for what it's worth.
You guys, I hope you join me for today's episode. I have the worst prognosticator on NFL media. Tune in. I'm actually a terrible prognosticator as well. The only thing I've been good at the last couple weeks is I picked the 49ers to lose to Cincinnati by 3, but they beat them by 3. I picked them to beat the Texans. I mean, not the Texans, the Titans by 3, and then they lost them by 3. I seem to get that right. I'm wrong on the score, but I seem to be right about the point differential. But, and this is a little bit my fault too, because I was picking them to lose a number of games, which they lost, by the way. And then, of course, people get upset and they're like, you can't keep picking them to lose. So then I tried this thing where I was like, all right, I'll be positive. I'm going to pick them to win. This is my own fault. They've lost, all those games. So this is probably on me. I should pick them to lose the rest of the time.
It's always the media's fault, Tracy. Never forget that.
Always.
Never forget that.
It's always my fault, for sure. I asked Kyle Juszczyk a question about COVID, and someone told me I jinxed the team. And I was like, yep, that's if they get a COVID outbreak, it for sure is because I asked that question, and my apologies.
Oh,
but you're right.
Lord.
It's always the media's fault.
Help
but God bless it. That's the beauty of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have jobs. So since we're about to join forces.
I don't even know how to respond to that. I can't with some of the things we get, I just can't.
Yeah,
Anyway.
But yes. But it is what it is. And that's the beauty of what we do. It's what makes us laugh. So before I let you go, I'm going to make you do, okay, so there's a couple things. One of them I gave you a heads up about, one of them I didn't, and I apologize. But I did this to Steve Weiss, I did it to Mike Silver, I did it to Amy Trask, so I'm going to do it to you too, and it's not nice, and I apologize in advance. But I'm going to make you give me a Super Bowl prediction. Who's going?
The prediction I made.
Oh, you, by the way, had the best reaction to this of everyone. Everyone else is like, come on. So I appreciate that.
Nah, it's all good. I get it. The prediction that I made mid-season was Green Bay over New England. And if I were to do it now, I would say Green Bay over Kansas City. How's that?
And I am going to go similar but different. I'm going to go Kansas City over Green Bay.
Yeah, I could see that. We didn't get the Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes matchup during the regular season, so it's only fitting and right that we get it in the Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm also thinking of those uniforms. It's going to be like Christmas in February.
Oh, yeah. And
so we should focusing on the important things. Yes. But yes, Christmas in February in LA. But that is going to be, I'm just thinking, that'll be fun. All right. So then the last thing I'm going to make you do, which I did give you a heads up about that we do every week on this podcast, is the good goat, bad goat of the week. And for those listeners that are new, we today say the GOAT is the greatest of all time, but there was a time where the GOAT was the person who blew the game. The GOAT was not a positive. So we do this, and it's just strictly for the week at hand, your good GOAT, bad GOAT of the week. And as the guest, I always let you decide, would you like to go first or would you like me to go first?
I'll go first. I mean, I'll embarrass myself first. So I don't know how you have a good goat. That seems to be an oxymoron. But
Well, it's a, like, we'll just kind of
I
go
will
with
say
it. But you're
this.
right.
Okay, good goat is Antonio Brown, that someone could lie about
Okay.
their vaccination status and vaccination card, get suspended for 3 games, and then come back and dominate in his first week back. So I'll make him my good
Hmm.
goat. How's that?
Okay. That's fair. I'll give him that. I'll give you that. Do you want to give us your bad goat, or you want me to go next?
My bad goat is actually Matthew Stafford. And I know they won
Ooh.
yesterday, but
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to trouble me to see a quarterback as experienced as he is just throw the football up into harm's way when there is pressure on him. We saw the one
Mm-hmm.
against Tennessee where he's back in his own end zone or near his end zone. Instead of taking the sack, he just throws it out, you know, to no one in particular except for a defender. And then yesterday we saw the same thing, um, where he got pressured and just threw the ball to no one except the defender. And look, he's 0-3 in the playoffs while he
Mm-hmm.
was in Detroit. He continues to do that, he's going to be 0-4 in the playoffs. Although this year with a much improved, I mean, a much better cast around him in terms of the Rams. So he would be my bad goat. He's too experienced. He's too talented to be making rookie mistakes like that, particularly at this point of the
And
season.
I'm so curious to see how he does the playoffs, because I have not subscribed to the theory yet that he's an elite quarterback who is just on the Lions. I have not subscribed to that theory, and I think the jury is very much still out. So I think this playoffs solidifies that one way or the other.
Well, I'll say this to you. I think he's an elite quarterback, but I don't think those losses in Detroit were all on him in the playoffs. So, and that's the thing that
Okay.
frustrates me a lot of times, where we start talking about quarterbacks and people talk about their win loss record,
Right.
or even their interceptions. Look, I can accept
Hmm.
interceptions when somebody makes a good play on the ball or whatever, but when you do dumb things like just throw it up because you're pressured, and as a veteran, you're taught take the sack, move on to the
Hmm.
next play rather than the turnover. All coaches preach ball security. That's what gets me. I will give the defense their credit for making a play, but
Hmm.
not when you just give it to them on a silver platter. So I think Matthews an elite quarterback, elite talent,
Okay.
elite arm strength, but I don't think all those losses in Detroit were on him in terms of the playoffs. But you can
Hmm.
best believe that this time around, he's going to face a type of scrutiny, particularly from the media, that he has not faced before. So he would want to be on his game.
And I'm not procrastinating my good goat, bad goat, but I have one more question in that realm with the Rams. I mean, with everything they've done this season. Anything less than a Super Bowl victory feels like it's a failed season.
Absolutely. I mean, when you go all in, you push your chips to the middle of the table to get Stafford. You go out and you
Hmm.
get Von Miller. You go out and you get Odell Beckham Jr. When you do all of these things, you have said, we are all in. And they've acknowledged that. So there's no
Hmm.
question. Anything less than a Super Bowl win, it is a failed season for them. But you know what, Tracy? We could also say that about 31 teams in the NFL.
True.
So
That's
I
true.
don't want to pick on the Rams, but you all play to win that Vince Lombardi trophy. And only one team gets to hoist that thing. So you could say that 31 other teams failed, other than the Super Bowl champion. But for the Rams, there's no question this was an all in season. And if they don't do it, um, it's going to be fascinating because the moves that they made are going to, just like up in Seattle, when you go all in, it starts to affect you down the road because you lack the
Hmm.
draft capital and those sorts of things. So excuse me, you better be damn good with your mid and late round picks, because if you're not, and the Rams have been good with them, but if you're not,
Hmm.
you're going to set your franchise back for a while.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I'm very curious. I mean, neither of us picked them, but will there be a home team in LA? Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. We have a month and a half to find
The
out.
answer
I
is
don't think
no.
so, but I could be wrong. That's why they play the games.
Well, then both of us are wrong, which is it's good that we'll be doing a show together.
Yeah, well, we'll have to change the name to the We're Wrong Show, and that's fine. I think people will relate to that and tune in.
Hey,
Like, I'm wrong all the
you
time. Can't
know,
wait to hear them.
that's what I'm saying.
Jim and Tracy are wrong again. Like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Jim and Tracy are wrong again.
Hey,
It's
you
great.
know,
I'm
I'm
very excited about it.
I'm good.
All right, I'll do my good goat, bad goat. My bad goat is Baker Mayfield, and I'm really glad I picked him because you were just talking about interceptions. The 4 interceptions, even though we talked about this before the pod, I don't think that 4th interception was really an interception because but there was holding and there were things. But I just feel like Baker Mayfield is at a point, especially at this point in the season, where he needs to establish himself as a quarterback, obviously, that can win, that can take you to the next level, that can get this Browns team to the playoffs. Complained about Odell. There's no more Odell. And I just think it was a poor showing on Christmas Day from Baker Mayfield. And so he is going to be my bad goat. And it kind of kills me if for no other reason than I love those commercials. And I'd like him to stay in the league because I really enjoy the At Home with Baker Mayfield commercials. And I'll be sad.
He'll stay in the league.
I mean, not that he's not going to be in the league, but I'd like him to be relevant. So he's still in the commercials.
Yeah, to me, that's one of the more fascinating storylines the offseason. Because, and this is just me, so don't take this as if I'm hearing this from someone in the organization. I do not believe that they believe 100% in Baker Mayfield.
No, I think they do.
But the question then becomes...
I'm so sorry. Hold on a second. Cappy? Sorry. Hold on one second, everybody. Shh. Quiet. Be quiet. Okay. She's not going to be actually part of the podcast. If I hold her, she won't bark.
Oh, it's all good.
Okay, so there we go. So anyways, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I don't think they believe in him 100%. So the question becomes then, what are your alternatives in the offseason? And I don't know that they will have a better option, which means what? You're not going to give him the money that he'll want. Does that mean you franchise him, which means you're paying him more than obviously you want to pay him? So I'm fascinated to see how the Browns are going to handle this situation when we get to the offseason.
I am as well. I am definitely fascinated to see. And then I am going to give my good goat of the week. I'm going to give it to Dak Prescott. I said earlier, I really like Dak Prescott. They scored a lot of points yesterday. I know they were playing the Washington football team. I know that win was not all on him, but I really like Dak, and I'm being a total, I don't think homer is the right word, but biased?
Fangirl.
You know what? I'm on brand. I'm being a total Dak fangirl.
See what I did
I
there?
just think I see what you did there. This is why we're going to work so well together.
No.
At the end of the day, you bring it all back, but I'm just going to give it to Dak. I don't even know that he deserves it, but I'm going to give it to him anyway because it's the Christmas season. And I think we saw him, when we saw him got hurt. I can speak English. When we saw him get hurt last year, there was a possibility he was never going to play football again. So, that was an important game for them. And I'm just giving it to Dak, even though I probably should give it to Micah Parsons or Trayvon Diggs instead if I'm going to pick members of the Cowboys. But
see,
I could have good goats. It's my show.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how you have a good goat.
Well, you're basically like the greatest of all time of the week, or you're like the bad goat. So maybe you should just be the goat, bad goat.
Oh, okay. All right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm getting there slowly. I'm kind of slow, but I'm getting there.
Well, the great thing is when you come on as my co-host, I'm totally open to suggestions and we can mix things up.
Okay. All right. It's cold out here in San Diego, as you can tell how I'm dressed. So I'm a little slow to warm up to figure these things out, but I'm getting there.
It's okay. I mean, I think you do make a valid point, and so maybe I should just call it the goat, bad goat of the week.
Okay. All right.
Maybe Cappy just made a noise again, so I think she agrees with you. I don't think she agrees with me on this.
Right. No, it's all good.
But all right, Cappy, are you proud of yourself? She always tends to make herself a part of a podcast. It's actually kind of incredible.
Believe me, mine would too if she could. I've got her fenced off though. When you got a 140-pound German Shepherd, she'll definitely take over the show. Put it that way.
A 10-pound Chihuahua mix is a little bit easier to deal with.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Much easier. Sort
of. Well, this was really fun. I really enjoyed talking football with you. You sound like you know a lot, even if you don't think you do.
I don't. I don't know any. I'm telling you, what's that line about trying to fool the people some of the time? So I'm just trying to make my way through this because I don't have a clue. Every time I think I know what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
um, the Chargers charger, and I realize I don't know anything.
Sure. There's things you can like count on in life: death, taxes, and the Chargers chargering.
It's like I said to someone recently. I know this isn't a Chargers show, but you go back.
That's
I
okay. We
started
can talk
covering them
about
in I think '96, and the only time. So how many years is that? 25 years ago, something like
it.
that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Terrible with math. But the only time they've ever had an identity in those 25 years, in my opinion, was the Marty Schottenheimer years where you knew what you were getting. All the
Mm-hmm.
other years with this franchise, I just never know, and every time I think the culture has changed and a young guy like Brandon Staley comes in and does some things differently, and all of a sudden everyone's saying, man, this is not the same old Chargers. They revert back to form. So now that I've said that, you watch.
That's their identity.
No, you watch. This team is now going to go on a run and probably go to the Super Bowl. So you will have one LA team in the Super Bowl. Who knows? But
What if we had two? No one in this country would watch the Super Bowl. That'd be it.
um,
Just Chargers Rams does not. I feel like there'd be a small group of people watching it.
I don't know. Justin Herbert, what? He was voted the starter for the Pro Bowl, so it had to be some
Well,
folks.
that's true.
Yeah, it had to be some folks outside of LA voting for him.
That's true.
So we get a few. We get a few.
I think people might also hate watch. Like, I can't believe it's two LA teams in LA. Yet they'd be kind of fascinated. This probably isn't going to happen. But if it does, I would like to say at minute 51:34 of the Tracy Sandler show on this week, we nailed it.
It's the only time I would have nailed it.
That'll be the tagline for our show.
Yeah.
That one time we were right.
Yeah.
There you go.
New meaning to hit and miss. So
so many misses in one hit.
It's
gonna be great.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
No, I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for being here. And if you guys like what you heard, which I know that you did, make sure to leave us a 5-star review and follow us on Instagram at Fangirl Sports Network. And I'll talk to everybody later. Bye, y'all.